Coming to the ring right now, ladies and gentlemen, out of Mound, Minnesota, at 218 pounds, he is the great Greg Gagne.
What's up, everybody? This is Dominic DeAngelo of FourHorsemenNetwork.com, and I am happy to be here with you on a Tuesday with none other than the boss himself. It is Straight Talk with the Boss. It's Magnum TA. Magnum, how are you this week?
I'm good. It seems like 2025 is taking off like gangbusters, and not enough hours in the day. Lots of stuff in the pipeline, figuratively and truthfully, more than I ever imagined. And I will say that there's some eyes on this show that aren't necessarily just your traditional fan, because I seem to have erupted the ire of some of the trolls in the collector world as well. So we're doing something right. We're getting people's emotions stirred up. So that's always a good thing.
Absolutely, yes. And there's nothing wrong with that. Once you start getting the trolls, that's when you know you're kind of getting a little traction happening.
Well, I figure you're moving the needle. It's like it's not a good day if you haven't been called an asshole by at least a couple of people.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. It's amazing the times we live in where I've always been an advocate of free speech, and you certainly don't have to like everything about everyone and everything else, but somewhere in there, the humanity portion of it seems to go out the window, and it's smoke and mirrors, and you want to take things out of context and do things just to get eyes on you rather than really what's going on. And it doesn't matter whether it's politics or wrestling or people's personal lives. It's everybody's subjected to the same thing. So it's kind of interesting to navigate at 65. I can imagine the young people, don't think twice about some of that stuff, but some of it's still abrasive to me, just try to kind of find your way down your lane and not get off track about what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really, the whole social media landscape is just, there's a bit of like almost a disassociation with people, where it's just like, even interacting with people I've met before, and then my relationship with them online can sometimes be different. And it's almost like there's that separation of connection you make, that physical, or that tangible connection that you make with some people. And it kind of throws off the game. It almost desensitizes. I feel myself sometimes being desensitized by a lot of this stuff when it comes to like human emotion and interaction sometimes. I don't know if you necessarily get that too sometimes, but it's just like, people post on Facebook. It doesn't resonate as much as like when you're interacting with that person one-on-one or anything to that effect. Do you feel that way too, Magnum?
Yeah, I do. And I think the whole, I'm in the telecom world, and I've been in the industry for the last 30 years. So, I've been part and parcel of helping build the system that makes all this thing possible. But to your point, it desensitizes folks, and it also takes away that voice inflection you get when you have, one-on-one, eyeball to eyeball type conversations. And I find myself, many times in a text, whether it's professional or personal, either or, and just say, realizing, hey, I probably ought to just pick up the phone and talk to this person, because if I'm getting the wrong impression, it's a good possibility they could be too. And it just causes more frustrations than necessarily have to be. And I think it's kind of messed the whole world up on problem solving, because it used to be a time when we realized that none of us are perfect, and we're all trying to be better versions of ourselves as time goes on. But the ability to see past something that truly is past is kind of muddled now, because it's like anything can spark something to take something body back into a chain of conversation, something that might have happened 2 minutes ago, 2 weeks ago, 5 years ago, whatever. And people are constantly, being, measured not necessarily on the here and now, but, this perception that's been, capsulized in the media, the media world. And it's not a good way to measure people on their, their intent or where they come from or what they're desiring to do. And unfortunately, your human instinct is just to be defensive.
Right.
And I mean, I come from the day when you had a problem with somebody, especially when we were in the business. If you had a problem with somebody, I don't care how big, small, tall, didn't matter what it was, you went and got eyeball to eyeball with them and worked it out. And if it turned into a physical solution or if it's a philosophical solution, either way, you came to some resolve and were able to, go forward. And you might still have some feelings, whatever, but it didn't keep you from being productive in your chosen field or whatever it was you were doing. So, I think that we got a group of people in general that have trouble communicating and problem solving and just navigating life because they're so used to either, on a text or on a keyboard or whatever and feel like, if they're not able to validate themselves through those means, then, then they're somehow a lesser than. And nothing can be farther from the truth. All this should be a tool. It should be an asset. It should be a new means of not being able to cope, with life and things that we all had to navigate.
Absolutely. And you see how social media affects everybody's lives. I almost feel like there's a contingency too. And I think I'm definitely of this matter. I almost feel like social media, it's a way to promote yourself and it's a way to get word out about, and it's a way to connect to people too, friends or new people, things like that. But I almost feel like it should be a public utility in a lot of ways because it's so essential to thriving, making businesses thrive nowadays, and getting a brand out there. Even something like this it's important to kind of do that. And believe you me, I know I need to be doing more with that when it comes across the board with all my podcast stuff. But I don't know. I wanted to follow up with this too, regarding the social media. What would you recommend to a modern talent today that uses this as a vehicle? What would be your do's and don'ts necessarily when it comes to promoting yourself or your persona or even your company in that regard for wrestling?
I think it's a real slippery slope because if you want to be, talking to the smart marks and trying to be cool and letting them, kind of feel like they're in the know and seeing behind the veil and know what's going on in the inner workings of the business, that can be really detrimental to the same perspective if you promote an opinion of something that is so radical, that is disruptive, that it becomes something that's a black eye to your corporate, your corporate sponsor, your employer, whatever. There's consequences to that today in today's time because people, they have people. I work for a Fortune 500 company. They have people that monitor those things. And if you were to be doing something that was considered, bullying or anti-Semitic or just a host of things, it could endanger your ability to continue in your livelihood. Could impact you when you're sitting at a job interview when somebody does a search on you and sees all the stuff that comes up. So it's to your point, it's a tool, but for the men and women that are out there, that the people that are superstars of the world, you can't wear your heart on your sleeve about the ins and outs and everything else that goes on about the inner workings of your day-to-day life or your business life because it'll be detrimental to you. You shouldn't be living your eyes being measured like that daily if you're an entertainer or if you're a competitor in some sport or if you're a professional business person. That's there's things that are there are boundaries, and I think we've got a whole society of people that don't understand what's inside and outside the lines and what's okay and what's not.
Yeah, there people kind of, when you don't have to put a picture to your name, or you don't have to put your name to a picture even, it gives people a little bit more freedom, and you're not seeing that person directly in front of you. It's you open yourself up to do, like, people, if they don't are not socially active or out and about or anything like that, this is their way to socialize, and it's not a very healthy thing to do. It can be, like you mentioned, a slippery slope in regards to a lot of things. So yeah, it's unfortunate. It can be a great tool for wrestlers, making videos and kind of getting a gimmick over. But it also, as a wrestler too, you do humanize yourself, which is in certain ways good, but in other ways bad, because you want that air of mystery sometimes when you're a wrestler. Like I know, like, you think about back in the day, like the lights would only be focused on the ring, and there is a reason the ring is elevated, so people look up to these competitors in the ring, and it feels like there's that separation. And now social media creates that connection, which is good, but also bad in certain ways. It's definitely a balance for a wrestler to try to consider now in today's world.
Yeah, well, I think the thing is it's difficult to define that balance, and that you want to you do want to have that fan base, and you want them vested in your character and your passion for what you do, but doesn't mean that you need to bring everybody into your world and your locker room and how you do business. And can you imagine? Can you just imagine if back in the day when, oh my gosh, when life was so insane, nobody would have been nobody would have got past one weekend, much less a month of that type of thing, without being so lambasted for called out for every decision you made that was immoral, or just something that brought out the worst in everybody. Who knows? But I think about the cast of characters and just the absolute crazy group of people that we cohabitated with, and we figured out how to navigate this. We're in a room with 30, 40 people that are as volatile and different and eccentric, and some just backwoods, and some illiterate to some degree, and some very educated, and all of them very opinionated. Yet, we all, like, we figured our way through this thing, because at the end of the day, we wanted to perform, and we wanted everybody that was talented to have that opportunity to be the best they could be, because it was a close knit circle. And I think a little bit of that today is the fact that the territory system obviously got wiped out, and there was niches all over the country in that territory system. But the indie world that popped up out of necessity, mother of invention, reason, allowed a lot of people through the gate and the passage in that would have never got through that system as it was, even in the territory days. There was just there were certain criteria that you had to meet to get in the door, and there's so much of a different breed as a result of that it just exposed more and more elements of people that haven't all had to come through the ranks the same way, and jealousy, and there's only so many positions, and there's only so much opportunity. Has always been the thing. I mean, you think about it, going out and saying I'm going to be a superstar in the WWE or for the NWA back in the day, you might as well have come out of high school and said, I'm going to go walk on and play for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty fair hand. I think I could go play for the Bears. And you had to crack that code and make your way into that deal, and everybody had to find a path, but it wasn't as open of a gate as it became. And some great talent has come about because of those opportunities, but there's also a lot that would have got weeded out, I think very quickly, if they'd had to hold court with the Undertaker or Bruce or Brody, or somebody that might not be quite as diplomatic as their little soft skin would want.
Well, yeah, it's a completely like, the egos are involved, and there always will be, but also it was a different kind of attitude where, like, yeah, you had to be kind of more thick-skinned and like kind of just looking out for yourself, but also looking to make money. The intentions were different. I think a lot of people think, and this is across the board with society, I think they are owed a lot of things, or they deserve a lot. And, certain things like that come into play where it's just like you get raised in this thing and things seem like a bigger deal when they're on social media, when like X, for example, that's only like 20% of the population, I think, is like what I've heard before. And so you're not really getting the actual reality of things and what the group thought is and everything to that effect. And I think a lot of people, a lot of wrestlers, and then even turn businesses, like, take that into account a little bit more seriously than they should. And they don't weather the storms and everything like that. And yeah, it's a really... It's a crazy thing to kind of consider when all this comes into play. How, Magnum, do you think your 20-something, 26-year-old self would have handled social media if you were in the thick of this action at that time?
I'm sure if diplomacy has always been the deal, and the political, the political things that we navigated. It made this stuff pale by comparison. I mean, in 1983, I worked a main event match with Hacksaw Buzz Sawyer in the New Orleans in the Superdome when I was a North American champion. I hadn't seen him since he, had, done some not so wonderful things to me that had a, bad financial impact on not only me but my family. And and when Bill Watts booked it, he knew that for the business that I was going to go out there and do what it took to have a world-class match, which is what the people that bought a ticket paid to see. And did I was I looking forward to it? Was this one of my fondest moments? Absolutely not. But I went out there and put in 20-25 minutes with a guy that I wouldn't have spit on if he was on fire, and did what it took, and didn't disrupt the world, and we all went on to work another day, him somewhere else and me somewhere else. So it's just that's sometimes you just got to put on the face and do the deal and be a professional, and that goes in all walks of life. Sometimes we just have to do things that isn't exactly our first choice, but we do try to do it with dignity and professionalism, and go on to the next thing and take care of business.
Yeah, it's that's it. Like I was talking to Rob, RVD, and I believe somebody else too. You're gonna. Oh, I was just telling people on my other show, Rumor and Innuendo, like, you're gonna work with people you don't like working with. That's just life, and you have to kind of coexist and understand, hey, this is a business, and what we're doing here, whether it's wrestling or whether it's a different kind of company or anything like that, you're just going to have to roll with the punches and understand the fact that, yeah, you're not going to see eye to eye with this person. You're not going to necessarily vibe with this person, but you're there to do something. You're there to do work. You're there to make money. And here it is, and a lot of people do not consider that. And, it's a big ongoing topic always now, it seems. Wrestling, there's always the politics coming into play, and, attitudes and egos and everything like that. And I guess that leads us into some fun stuff on TNA Genesis. We happen to have TNA happened to have an amazing show in Dallas, and that included someone you're very familiar with, in Tessa Blanchard. She defeated Jordan Grace and is now on rise here in TNA. I wanted to get your thoughts. So did you get to catch the match? What was Tessa's reaction? Did you get to interact with her afterwards? And obviously there was a fan contingency too that goes on. That's what we've discussed before a little bit. But what's your perspective on everything, Magnum?
I thought for her first match back, in for a company where she left the world's champion, and all the things that ensued, thereafter, right, precluding that whole event, that it was fantastic. She was aggressive. She was vicious. She's a leaner, meaner version of herself than she was 4 years ago. I think she has more athleticism and good ring movement today than she's ever had. And I thought Jordan, who obviously looked like $1 million, brought her best out. So, I thought they presented a real solid contest, and Tessa was the obvious heel in the match, and which was what we expected. That's what she went out there to do. And it's the first step back to a road for her to go on to the next level and the next thing. And I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited what's going on with TNA in general. I mean, this whole association working with the WWE and NXT is just good for business for everybody.
Yeah, I got to see a shot of the whole arena there, and it looked awesome. Like, it was just so cool to see, that big of a crowd there for a pay-per-view for them. And, now that their connection with WWE, they announced that long-term deal between them and NXT. And, we already saw that collaboration happen at Genesis. We had Cora Jade there. There was Faxium there. And I know there was another talent there, too. I can't pinpoint on who, but it's just great stuff. This is a good indication to come. And who would have fathomed, 5 years ago, that something like this would have a team effort like this would have gone down in pro wrestling? It's pretty wild, Magnum.
Well, it's smart. It's smart business. And if you watch TNA's product, Bell Time to Bell Time, and the continuity of their shows, they've got the formula and they understand the psychology. And are they in the smaller venues? Yes. But do they go out there and tell a story and get you vested in the characters? 100%. So it's just a great way for everyone to just kind of share the roster a little bit, and to give people opportunities to come, help bring somebody up. It's got a way, for them to watch, somebody working their way up through the ranks and have eyeballs on them, besides what's totally being controlled, by Sean, in NXT, and see what somebody's capable of, because they're going to have eyes on that product, regularly now, and there's some great guys and gals both, in that place, and I think Jordan is going to have a great run over at NXT, and I'm sure into WWE as well. I feel bad for her a bit, because I know how hard she's working to look the way she looks. And she looks like $1 million, but to maintain that look, that sharp, that hard year round, is near impossible. And that's a lot of pressure put on an athlete, a whole lot of pressure. I don't know that the average fan realizes, the sacrifice that somebody at that level of fitness is putting in to look like that. But it's absolutely mind-boggling, the mental discipline it takes to do that. And that's to sustain that, year in, year out, and taking bumps in the ring and going through that rigmarole. That's a tough task.
It really is. And you've seen the physical transition she's made over the course of these years. It is remarkable. I thought she looked great even before she got that sculpted and built and everything to that effect. But it really sets her apart. Yeah, that's going to be the tough challenge is keeping with that body type. being able to wrestle and stay healthy, and considering all that, because I know she did bodybuilding, like she was in a bodybuilding competition just like a couple months ago or something like that too.
It was in the within the last year, and I mean, I think I don't know if she got her pro card or not, but she looked phenomenal, and then she came back off of that, and got back to a little more medium size for her, for something she was comfortable at, and now she's moving to a new company, and again, it looks like absolute $1 million. I have a lot of compassion for that, because I know it's like people will we go back to social media again, and people will go back to the internet and they'll pull up the most unflattering version of someone they can, when they aren't in that same prime level of shape they were in their peak. And unfortunately, that's the land of comparison we live in. You only look as good as you did yesterday or it's like your last performance. So I'm sure she'll find a middle ground and find a way to navigate through that challenge, because she's a very disciplined, hard worker, and she's as professional as they get. So again, her and Tessa had a fantastic match. I look forward to seeing Tessa's character evolve as she navigates her way back through. But what a tough room to walk back in, where you've been the champ of not just the women, of everybody.
Yeah.
Beat Sami Callihan for the world's heavyweight title. Had her beating guys that weighed 100 pounds more than her, and so it's like, I'm glad the two of them are teamed back together, because they both kind of need this journey, because it's a intertwined tale, and it's the evolution of TNA into its next thing. And I'm not saying Tessa has reinvented herself, but the journey she's gone on through the lucha and the CMLL work, and traveling around the country and making the appearances she's made, has given her a different flavor than the just monster powerhouse that she was trying to be back before. And it's a different variation. So and it's going to continue to evolve. So it's going to be kind of a cool trip for everybody to kind of go on together.
Yeah, I think it's neat too, because, and you said it, like, I think Jordan was the perfect opponent to have back Tessa in the mix with, because Jordan was the epitome of the knockouts division for the past several years. And the fact that Tessa left being the TNA World Heavyweight Champion and coming back, it kind of like sets a new direction almost, where it's like, hey, she helps define our pro wrestling promotion that we have, but she's really hitting home with this knockouts division, and this is who you got to keep tabs on moving forward too. So I liked it a lot. I like the attitude that Tessa brought into it. She's like infallible, like the crowd chants at the end. She already was like, mad now, wait till you see what's next. It's like great stuff. It's just I like the way she's handling it all.
Well, and I mean, and that turnbuckle that she literally ripped off of the deal, the pad off. I mean, she tore off a solid. That was not gimmicked, nothing. She ripped the stinking thing off there. So if you don't think she's a blooming pit bull, she's got the tenacity of a daggone Rottweiler. So. It's going to be fun. Like I said, I'm interested to see. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of new talent going to be coming in and out in the women's division, with NXT, and the more all of them can mix it up, the better it is for everybody's game. Because basically, nobody wants to be a one-trick pony. I can only work with one person or one style or whatever. You want to be able to have a great match with everybody you walk in the ring with.
Yeah. And she is still going to be the bar moving forward for TNA and the women's division, and potentially NXT and stuff. Right after we got done recording last week, I got to interview Tessa, and it was great. She had she mentioned about having that competitive attitude and getting back in the mix, and kind of her journey to see from CMML, what she learned from all that stuff. And we talked about musical theater a lot, because I looked on Wikipedia and I was like, wait, she's in the musical theater, and I did musicals and stuff as a kid, so it was neat to talk to her about that. But I led the conversation off asking about you, and I actually clipped it for this show. So here's what Tessa had to say about you, Magnum. Growing up under Magnum and everything like that, what did you learn about him? What did you learn about yourself from like a personal standpoint? What has he taught you life lessons wise?
Oh gosh, I don't even know if we have enough time in this interview for everything that I know. Right? No, but honestly, my stepdad, he's like my best friend. Like we're so close. Anything that I need advice or help with, I know that I can go to him judgment free, and I can be as filter free as possible and trust in him. And I really rely on his advice with a lot of things, personal, professional. But yeah, he's just one of the greatest guys.
He is. He's so down to earth, straightforward, and it's really nice to talk to him on a weekly basis. I learn a lot from him just from other perspectives. Just his work ethic is great too. It's like it's unbridled.
He's always been one of the hardest workers. Always.
Yeah, 100%. All right. So I guess I got to follow up, Magnum. What is your favorite musical?
Wow, man! You see, I've seen them all too. See, I grew up.
Did you?
I grew up very diversified, and but I did hear a little of y'all's interview, and I have to share with her Phantom of the Opera, definitely one of my favorite of all time. I think when the movie version of it came out, I think my family and I probably watched it 20 times over a period of times. When Lucy was like 3 years old, she was singing all those songs. It was just just crazy. But yeah, Tessa had the theatrical bug from the very beginning, and it's so appropriate that she found this very physical way to dig into those skill sets and to embrace all the passionate things that she does with the business.
Yeah, it's a good balance of everything, and her being such an athlete and then having that theater background and everything like that. It comes into play, and it's going to be really, really fun to see her moving forward to 2025. So yeah, if you guys haven't checked it out, go to it's on onetsport.com right now, or One True Sport Network, OneTrueSportTV.com. Go to that. It's up there. You can check it out. We cover some good ground on there, and Tessa's a lot of fun, and I was really happy I got to talk to her. So,
and you did too.
Yep. Thank you. So a lot of people are chiming in with musicals. Les Mis, Guys and Dolls, Singing in the Rain, plenty of good musicals. Yes. So, hey, wanted to ask you, somebody that's very musically inclined too is Joe Hendry. He ended up winning the TNA Heavyweight Championship and against Nick Nemeth, which was a really great match. From what I've heard, I didn't get to see the match, but I know the way these two compete. So really positive stuff. What do you think? Joe Hendry being the world champion, what do you see his future down the line here in pro wrestling?
I think it just shows you how brilliant the moves are that are going on in the company. I think the timing couldn't be more perfect because, I mean, talk about, a force of nature. I didn't know who Joe Hendry was 6 months ago until I was introduced to him, but I started checking him out and seeing his following and seeing, kind of what his DNA was all made up about. And I mean, he is destined to be on a grand stage. And I'm sure that this TNA/WWE relationship will only, further the potential of that, taking place, down the road. It's not a far stretch that, a TNA title match could take place during a WrestleMania weekend.
No,
I mean, there's just no telling what they could do with all this. But he's got the it factor, and obviously great performer on top of it. So, look, young man's got a bright future for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see him too. He's another guy. he was in NXT for a little bit. And Nick Nemeth mentioned on an interview too, how it's kind of fast. Like he had to go back from the start after he lost in NXT. He had to go back and then build his way back up here in this story that they told in TNA. And no better person to beat than Nick Nemeth, who's really been the flag bearer for TNA over the past year and really helped them kind of cultivate this identity that they have. That's really refreshing and everything too. So big fan of his too as well. So they're doing some great stuff today. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All right, I start a couple questions from you, the folks here. Got to give some shout outs here to Fernando, CB, Triple E, Darren Staley, Mr. C. Let's see who else we got in here too. Chris Bradshaw. Shout out to everybody on here. I'll be sure to get to a couple questions before we close up. So be sure to ask some and get some in there, and I'll keep my eyes peeled. Little Patty's also in the house too. So hi to everybody. But Magnum did want to follow up and see what you thought about Raw this week. I thought it was kind of I talked about it earlier on my other show, how it's kind of like stay the course with a lot of stuff in the Build Royal Rumble, I felt like. So nothing super duper wild happened. But I had some big takeaways, I think, from it. But I wanted your perspective. What really stood out to you this week on Raw?
Penta is the biggest introduction star on the WWE programming I've seen that I can remember.
Wow.
He is electric. He is a megastar. He's charismatic. He has got all the right stuff. If they were to bring Rey Fenix in with him and put Rey Mysterio and those three together, that would be the greatest Latin connection possibly in the history of the business, omitting Eddie Guerrero from that. It would be just unbelievable. And the guy is just electric. And their people are already vested in him. And all they got to do is, I mean, he's such a no-brainer that, the creative team is going to have a ball with him. Because the camera loves him, the people love him, and he's going to be great.
It's funny, Kevin Nash mentioned on his podcast too how it was a couple of weeks ago he was talking to Triple H, and Triple H was working on somebody's entrance, and I think he might have thought it was Nakamura and everything like that, but it ended up being Penta's entrance. They were kind of trying to facilitate and make so the attention to detail that they put forward in making sure Penta was debuted in the proper fashion and everything like that is all there. And so the machines behind him, and you can see that too. I mean, earlier before he made that debut, it broke on WWE Shop that his mask and T-shirts and everything was available before he even debuted, and they sold out already. That like the masks are on back order till like April. It's just like he's there, man, and it's going to be pretty cool to see what they decide to do. I hope. I know this guy. It's always a suspension of disbelief, and it's walking a fine line when it comes to pro wrestling. But I almost hope they give him like some sort of mystical powers in certain ways, give him that almost mysterious vibe even further, but be a fine line to walk when it comes to that kind of thing, Magnum.
That walk that he has is so animated. It reminds me of like a combination of Bruce Lee and to your, in some kind of, twisted dark character because of the, the skeleton look, like the homage you paid to La Parka.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just good stuff. And I've been watching this guy since he was, on the Lucha Underground.
Yeah.
That's the first time I ever saw him. And I said, man, and I thought back then, well, because really, you didn't really get his personality as much back then. They had him, real dark, dragonish type figure. But, I really became a fan of his when he was on AEW, and really, first time I really got to see, multiple sides of what he was capable of doing, and I think he's internally tried to make himself yet the best version of himself that he could be right now, because he really seemed like he got in really amazing shape and really toned his arms and. Just look, like really fit, not like a, big muscle guy, but like a really fit athlete, and he moves like a cat. So he's just got that perfect look, and that finish that he's got with the the arm breaker gimmick, and then that final pile driver ish thing that he does is so just solid. And it looks dangerous, yet I know it's not. But he does it so well, it looks like he could kill somebody. And that's the art. I mean,
he's got it all when it comes to that. And not since really Rey Mysterio has WWE had a really top like luchador that they can be able to market in the best way and stuff like that. I know they're making the attempt here with Dragon Lee, and some other names have come and gone a little bit, but Penta's like their next big thing, it seems like. And be intriguing to see once Rey Fenix, once he gets out of his AEW deal, how they decide to position him into the mix as well. So,
and they've given him great opponents too.
Yeah.
I mean, two 5-star opponents right off the get go. I mean, Gable is as good as anybody to lace up a pair of boots there, and going that match last night when he put the fingers out and the kid grabbed it, it looked like he broke his hand in pieces.
Yeah,
but he knows how to sell something where like it was painful, it hurt, and to be able to do that in a mask, first of all, is an art form all in and of itself, because it's so difficult not being able to see the face emotion. But what he pantomimes is so good that you're like in this thing with him. So it's anybody that's ever envisioned working and trying to express emotion and think about putting a mask over your face and doing it, that's a whole different thing. And of course, Rey Mysterio, master obviously of what he does. Guys like Mr. Wrestling 2 back in the day, knew how to do that pantomime, and it's an art form. So it's really cool to see it done well. Cool visuals, great outfit, very athletic. Nothing. There's not one piece. There's not one box I can't check off and say he fills it all. I mean, he's going to be whatever they allow him to be.
Do you think he can flourish on his own as a standalone act, or do you think he would be enhanced by having somebody like a manager or a mouthpiece to kind of build him up even further? Or where do you kind of stand on that?
I would not do that. I would just associate him in the clan with Rey, because Rey is so good.
Yeah.
Bridging that gap. His English is so good, yet he, still, so strong and true to his culture that, he would be the perfect guy with him, not just a manager, somebody somebody alongside a teammate. But I wouldn't just give him because first of all, he doesn't need the distraction.
Sure.
He doesn't need a third man out there for a distraction. When he's performing and doing his thing in the ring. So, unless they had other plans for him as a heel or something, I can't see them doing that as a babyface.
Yeah, the only person I could maybe think that'd be neat to pair him with would be somebody like Heyman gets his talons into him or something like that, where it elevates.
That's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah. If Paul Heyman, puts the Midas touch next to him, he's main event status, instantly. But it would be really premature. There had to be a reason for that story to make sense.
Absolutely. No, he's great. He's like such a nice little shake up almost for WWE. It's something that they haven't done in a while. So they're doing right by him so far. It's really cool to see. I'm excited to see the matches ups that we're going to get to witness down the line and everything to that effect as well too. So very, very cool stuff. Something I did want to mention too on Raw. This was my big takeaway. Wanted to get your thoughts on this. But Magnum, I loved the CM Punk promo. I thought what he said in the crowd, kind of getting that Royal Rumble hype up, mentioning names like he mentioned Cena, he mentioned Sami Zayn in a dismissive fashion, Roman Reigns, and then on top of it, he mentioned Hulk Hogan and said, like, if he gets in there, I'm going to throw his dusty old ass out of the ring.
I saw that.
And
I saw that.
Just like blurring those lines because of, what Hogan's reputation is outside of wrestling and stuff like that. I just thought it was such a cool moment that really gets you excited for the Royal Rumble. But it's in that CM Punk fashion, too, where you're just like, all right, I'm invested in what CM Punk's going to be doing this WrestleMania season. Yeah.
And Paul Heyman out of the conversation, CM Punk, hands down, best interviewer to me in their organization, because he has that ability to bring you in to where there's logic in what he says, and there's enough that you could fact check to say he really feels what he's saying. This is logical and makes sense, and he has been so able to back up what he said he's going to do, and been through not an easy path, and coming back from the injury when he first came in, and keeping himself relevant all throughout that time, and to the point where he was recovered enough to work, and nobody knew it until they made it like it was part of the angle. So I've become a huge fan of him, and it doesn't matter if he's cutting that promo in a ring, or he's doing something outside of his individual space, just something promoting for the company. He's just a great spokesperson in general.
And I think something that maybe doesn't get considered about him, and that I'm sure comes into a lot of play about how he handles himself and the content he has to say in his promos, is that CM Punk's a big sports fan, and like there's a lot of talents nowadays, like they're mostly wrestling focused. Some are sports fans, but it's so many of them are so wrapped up in the pro wrestling world and how that business works and everything like that they kind of lose that legit competitiveness that goes with the organized sports and that kind of thing like that. And I think he's able to pull with that. And not only can that help him facilitate a connection with fans outside of the ring, but I think that really helps kind of what your attitude is when you're handling yourself and behind the microphone too.
Yeah. And if you turn back the clock and you look at some of the best jousts between, Dusty and Ric Flair, same thing. They were both big sports fans. Dusty loved the Boston Celtics, and Flair was a Chicago Bulls fan. And those two would be jousting 24/7. USA Today opened up, this happened, that happened. It didn't matter where you're at, the airport or restaurant, on a promo, something come out about it. I mean, it was just intertwined and the fabric of who they were. And, and to your point, CM Punk is, follows in that lineage of guys like that. And it does. It makes you competitive. And, that's where the best of seven with the Nikita and I had concept came from. And, all those things, tied back and forth and played together because, that's what we were all passionate about.
Yes. Yeah. It's another added element that interests wrestlers outside of the ring, also interests fans that are into the ring, but then they watch on the court, the field, or the diamond. So it's pretty neat stuff. All right, let's do some fan questions here. We'll start with Darren Staley, who gave us $10. Thank you, Darren. Right. Yes. He says, I got my master's degree in law, ran for office and lost. This was just this past election, too, that happened to Darren. So congrats to even running, Darren. I am back on the horse and going for my Juris Doctorate at Case Western Reserve. I was fully disabled from 2006 to 2013. TA is an inspiration. So he just wanted to give you a thank you for that there, TA. So pretty cool.
Well, thank you. Things that don't kill us either motivate us or make us crawl under a rock. And it's good to hear that those things motivated you.
Absolutely. And no, Darren, I did not cover your full tuition, but you're welcome. You're welcome either way. I'll take credit nonetheless. All right. A couple other questions that we had. Chris Bradshaw. Magnum, what memories do you have of the Richmond Coliseum? It's been boarded up for years with no plans for a new arena. Sad to see such a historical building go to waste.
And it was a magical building, just the right size for wrestling. A building that hold 10,000 people was ultimate size for us back in the day, and it was just 100 miles from the Norfolk Scope and the Hampton Coliseum, so it was all part of the storytelling trail that we would head out on every month, and it was a regular stop for us. So great memories there. I actually, before they shut the building down, I got to work a convention there, and it was kind of unique and weird to be in the place where we were at back in the day. But very very cool vibe, and some of the greatest wrestling fans ever. That my one big standout match that I remember one-on-one with Arn Anderson was in the Richmond Coliseum, and it was so we had so few of them, I can remember exactly where it was, and a lot of great memories.
WWE's got their hands all over stuff, and I think it's really neat to see what they've been doing and the kind of evolution that they've been making when it comes to like prospects, like the WEID program and WLFG and the NIL stuff. It would be really neat too if they would kind of make a concerted effort to pick out arenas that they designated almost and kind of help restore, and then almost like a different venue that they can kind of play into and really cultivate a good fan base there. I think that would be kind of neat too. It's like focusing on some old school arenas or something like that. I don't know.
No, it would be, because there were some venues that, and I'm sure in the WWE stomping grounds, same thing. There were some those smaller venues that might have held 4,000 or 5,000 people that were mainstays when they were working it as a territory.
Yeah.
And had I mean, literally in the early '80s when the territory in Mid-South popped, I mean, we had a host of buildings that were 2,000 to 4,000 seat arenas, and you put 3,000 screaming fans in a small building. It doesn't get any more electric than that. I mean, it's just that sound is reverberating everywhere, and it's it's a thing that you'll remember. If anything, to get the same vibe from these giant arenas has got to really be challenging. My son was watching something on YouTube that from back, I think it was in the old Charlotte Coliseum, and the natural sound, the people, woof woof, with every blow you threw, every move you made was so dynamic that when you got in a grand stage like a Superdome or something with 25,000 seat or greater capacity that maybe only had a third of what the building was capable of holding, you never, even though you got them going, you just never got that same just excitement that you did when you were completely surrounded 360 degrees by people that are just electric.
Yeah, I have to give hats off too to AEW for actually making the pivot to do smaller arenas finally. And what they did this past week was in Cincinnati, and that was such a cool, unique looking arena. It almost felt like a Fight Club kind of vibe to it in a certain way. And I thought it helped elevate a product that quite frankly needs it at this juncture sometimes. And I think they're finding the good balance of doing that. So I'm all for like the smaller, more intimate venues, because I think from a television product standpoint, it's really, really entertaining to watch and creates a whole nother character that isn't even a person. You know what I mean? So,
and it's how you shoot it. It's the way you set it up. I mean, you could have 2,000-3,000 people in there and shoot it where you're looking at a wall and two rows of people sitting in front of a deal on one side of the ring, and not get the full ambiance. Or you can be in a smaller place and set things up where your panoramic view, like they were able to do in Center Stage back in the day, look way larger than what it ultimately was. And and plays well to television. So, I agree with you. If AEW has taken that philosophical approach, it's probably going to yield them some benefits.
Absolutely. Speaking of AEW, Mr. C asks us this. How much money do I have to donate for you guys to cover an AEW show or two? Serious question. Magnum, how much would that take?
Make me an offer.
Make us an offer.
Yeah, and the problem be honest, is that I work a full-time professional, main job. I also work for this little company called Powertown that I'm firmly vested in, and I'm a dad of two teenagers and a nice sweet wife, all under one roof, and it's a lot to do. So just to try to catch, a Friday night SmackDown or a Monday night Raw, or even and now Tessa on TNA Plus, there's only so many spare hours in the day if you're working 10 plus hours. So it's a time thing. And if they continue to do something intriguing that makes me want to bounce back over and take a peek, then it won't cost anything. But until then, to your point, it'll cost you. And I can't tell you how much, because I'm very expensive.
Make us an offer, Mr. C. Send it to DeAngelo@gmail.com. We'll see what we can do. The other issue is too, Greg doesn't watch it, so he'll tune in once if he does and has notes. But we'll have to try to get Greg on board too with that. So Greg is off in Hawaii right now, so he will not. That's why he's not here. We didn't kick him off the show. We didn't kick him off the show yet, but we'll see. I got to give thanks to Greg, though. He sent me a poster of Vern, an autographed poster of Vern, and an old school wrestling poster too. So,
oh, nice!
I was flabbergasted. I'm super excited. I got to find a good frame for it and everything. So
nice.
I love Greg. He's awesome. So shout out to him. All right, we'll do two more questions. One of my own, and then one that at Mr. C asked that I thought was pretty good. This is a follow-up almost from last week because we talked about Sting and Warrior a little bit. Magnum, what are your thoughts on the Ultimate Warrior?
Well, he made a spot in wrestling history. He was dynamic, explosive, charismatic, mega, bodybuilder-ish looking, superhero character. And you'll never go back and think of the 80s without having to put a place mark there for the Warriors taking part as a in terms of what he did in the ring, all the other things aside, I don't think he ever had any aspiration of doing anything more than exactly what he did. So I'm sure he was probably satisfied with that, though. There was no chance of me ever looking like him. And I don't think there was ever a chance of him working like me. So we had to both live with that.
That's the one thing that you got to cope with. All right, my question, because I forgot. So like I said earlier, I interviewed Tessa. It was really, really cool to hear her because I think I asked her, but I can't remember who, maybe if she watched you. Yeah, old matches of you and stuff like that. And she mentioned how she loved Johnny Valentine. And I thought that was super cool to hear, because I was not too familiar with Johnny Valentine. I think that once he first caught on my radar was he was in the plane crash with Flair, and then he lost his leg and stuff like that. But then I got to see Ricky Starks made mention of a match between Wild Bull Curry and Johnny Valentine, and I watched that and I was like, wow, this guy is great. Can you speak to Tessa and what kind of watching that old school kind of matches and everything? Did you kind of show her that stuff?
You know what? When she was young, none of it. But as she became a student of the game, and I was a Johnny Valentine fan because in Mid-Atlantic, he and Wahoo McDaniels beat the ever-loving tar out of each other. I mean, I don't care what sport you came from, what walk of life. If you saw those two in the ring beating each other, there was no question in your mind that there was a battle going on. I have never to this day seen two people hitting any harder than those two guys hit each other. Who had the silver dollar challenge, or I don't know, maybe Johnny had, but somebody had a fishbowl full of silver dollars, and it's supposed to be like $500 in it or something. And it was something they did for television, but they just hammered each other. And he was that old school, methodical, slow pace, but got you vested into that match to where, he had rides with people. And had he, not been in the plane crash with Rick, he would have written a whole nother chapter in wrestling.
Oh, 100%. I like just seeing old pictures of him. He's got that old school, handsome, classic kind of look that I'm like, man, I'm surprised he didn't do more. And it got to make sense after the plane crash and stuff. But it's just like, wow, what a fascinating talent. And like, you hear how great of a heel he was too. It's just really, really cool stuff. So,
man,
awesome.
There was no social media, so nobody knew anything else about him. And
that's it.
And sometimes it's just good that way.
It is
for all of us, myself included.
Yeah, me too. I've stepped in it one or two times on there too. So
yeah, well, I've stepped in it and drug it with me.
Right. Well, cool. All right, guys. As far as anything else, you want to give any updates with Powertown or keep people in the loop with that?
So today is the 21st of January, and Myers and Cardona landed in California last week during the fiery, daggone, hellish thing going on there. Finally got it off the boat, got it on the truck, and looking forward to land sometime later this week at our fulfillment center in Alabama. And we will be looking for, I will hopefully be showing you guys a surprise, maybe even on the next show, of something that we're having flown in, because our next round of product will be landing sometime in February, and so that'll be Myers and Cardona Remco's one, and then we're suffering the aftermath of China being shut down for this little thing called Chinese New Year. That seems like you lose about a month of productivity. So we'll be pushing to get the Ultras 2 and TNA, out to the folks that purchased them, and they're all in serious levels of the production process, and I've seen samples of all kinds of things that aren't ready for us to show the world yet, but it will. Everything that we have got in the pipeline will be fulfilled. Probably, I'm hoping by the end of May.
All right. Good to hear. So, guys, you can keep tabs. Just go to powertownwrestling.com and bookmark that, and you'll see some new images and stuff like that in the forthcoming year here. So, should be an exciting time. It is an exciting time because Magnum made me privy to some of it. So, it's awesome stuff forthcoming. What else was I going to say? Oh, if you want some Magnum merch, go to 1tsport.com. That's www.1tsport.com. You can get some Magnum TA merch. You can get some Greg Gagne merch. We got plenty of other talents, too, on there. Legends like Bruiser Brody. Who else we got on there? Jeez, plenty. Tully. So many. So be sure to check it out. Arn, Four Horsemen. We're the exclusive home of the Four Horsemen merchandise, too. So really, really cool stuff. Kevin Nash. Click this. Kevin Nash merchandise is up there now, too. So take a look at that. Anything else? What else? I thought there was one other thing. I can't remember. But either way, this was fun, Magnum. It'll be nice to have Greg back, but it's always nice chatting with you one-on-one. I'm learning from the boss here. It's good stuff.
Well, thank you for your patience with me and just being one-dimensional this week. But I think we got to cover some ground on some things that were, kind of been thought-provoking for me. I'm glad we got to share some of it with the fans.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, from Triple E to Mr. C to Darren Staley to you name it on here. Lil Patty, it's always good to see her. So, and for Rico, good questions, too, as well. So I did screenshot a couple for next week. So if you did ask a question, we might address it next week, too. And we'll get Greg's opinion on it, too. So, but for the time being, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I hope you learned from the boss like I learned from the boss. And he's just going to give you some straight talk all the time. So we'll see you next time here Straight Talk with the Boss, Magnum TA, and Greg Gagne.